Hello, this is Anthony from Anthony's Expired Film. Today I'd like to talk about how I develop black and white film using the stand method of development. So I bought a bottle of HC110, actually by Legacy Pro, and it's called L110. And I use the dilution B that's famous for HC110, use a lot of developer, it goes fast. And the results were good. You know, I learned how to use the massive dev chart they call, which has all the films, all the ISOs, the possible ISOs you can use it at, with different temperatures and times. And it's really a lot to ingest and learn, and make sure you have pick the right film, because if you have the wrong time, there goes a whole roll of film. So I used it a few times, and I said, there's got to be an easier way. You know me, I got to find an easier way to do everything. So one day I found a video by Eric at the Film Photography Channel. That's the name of his site. I'll put his picture up there. Great guy. He has a wonderful set of videos. He talks about cameras and development, different films. He hasn't done a video in a while. But he's really a great guy, and I enjoy his videos very much. So I found the one he did on stand development, and it was very interesting because it's the same process no matter what film, no matter what ISO you use, it's the same process. And let me read his definition was perfect, and I wrote it down so I can give it to you as he said it on the video. Stand development is a process by which you develop your black and white film with a highly diluted developer for an extended amount of time with minimal agitation. That's what it is in a nutshell. He uses HC110, a bottle of that, the thick syrupy kind, which is hard to get now. This video is, I think, 5 years old, but it still applies today. So I said, let me try it. And so I'm going to develop 2 rolls of film, different ISOs, but I'm going to use exactly the same process. And let me give you an overview of the process. First, I'd like to show you the cameras in the film. So I have a roll of, and I'll put a picture up there too, but a roll of the new Harman Kentmere 200, and I put that in my point and shoot Kodak F9 camera. The design always reminds me of the old 126 Instamatic cameras. That's what it reminds me of. And then I chose a roll of XP2, which is ISO 400, and the Kodak M35 point and shoot. These two, I love plastic fantastic cameras. The lenses are very similar. I believe this is f11, the f9 is f9. So these films are appropriate for these cameras, but they're very similar. And so one thing I want to mention about XP2, as you know, XP2 is a special film as it can be developed in C41 processing. So if you send your film out to a lab and you've got a couple of rolls of color film and you have a roll of XP2, they can all be developed at the lower cost of color C41 development. It usually is less than the cost of a traditional roll of black and white film. But when you're developing on your own, you can actually use black and white chemicals on XP2 film, and it comes out great. What happens with, and I refer you to Eric's great video to really understand how stand development works and the method he uses, and a lot of things that's the advantages of it, what it does to film. But I'm just going to show you how I do the development. That's the main purpose of this video. But you'd be surprised how good the results are from stand developing. And especially with expired film, because with expired black and white film, as you know, with black and white film, you really don't use the rule of, extra stop every 10 years, because black and white film is different than color. The emulsion does not degrade because there's no color dyes on the film. It's just the silver content. So you can use black and white film for a much longer period of time before you even have to add extra exposure. But you really don't know, when you have an expired roll of film, you don't know how it's been stored. It could have been in the fridge, it could have been in the freezer, it could have been in the glove box of a car with the sun beating down. You don't know when you buy expired film. So stand development is an excellent way to develop expired film because it will compensate for those different qualities of film. It's really very easy, and it's the same method every time. You don't have to use the massive dev chart, as you'll see. So what we'll do now is hand it over to Tony, the intrepid photographer, in the kitchen, and he's already in progress. So let's take it away, Tony. Okay, I've got my 2 rolls of film ready for stand development. The first one will be Kentmere 200. Of course, it's upside down. Kentmere 200. And I always write a little something on the paper saying the camera I use. So I use the Kodak F9 and the date. This way I know what's what. And the second roll is XP2 400. And here's my little paper. I shot that in the M35, the green plastic fantastic camera. So you'll see that these are 2 different films, 2 different ISOs. And I'm going to be using exactly the same development process called stand development, which Anthony explained earlier. The developer I'm using is L110. This is made by Legacy Pro. They make a clone of the HC110 developer. They also make a clone of Kodak's T-Max developer called L-Max, and that's a great developer too. Those are the 2 that I use the most. You can also use Rodinol or Rodinol, however you pronounce it. A lot of film developers use Rodinol as well. I've never tried that one myself. You can also use Ilford 3. That's another one that works well in the same process and the same amounts that I'll be using. All right, so first step to do is I like to pre-soak my film as I've done before. All right, so we're just gonna put some cold water from the tap and just fill up, so we'll let it sit while I'm preparing the developer. There's only 1 roll in each tank, just so you know. All right, so here's the measuring cup I use. It's a very small cup, but I use 8 milliliters of developer. So I'm gonna get this set up so you can see me pour the 8 milliliters in. All right, let's pour our 8 milliliters. Hopefully you can see it as best as you can. Okay. Right. Between the 5 and the 10, that's 8. There's our 8 milliliters. And I pour that into about a little less than 20 ounces of water. I'm getting that ready. Because I always fill up the tank, whether it's 1 roll of 35 millimeter or 1 roll of 120, I always use 20 milliliters of water. So I'm gonna pour just a little bit out because I'll show you what I do. All right, so we're gonna pour in our 8 milliliters of HC110, which is L110 in my case. Just pour that in. And then what I do is I just kind of rinse it out. There's a little left in there, but I just rinse it out so that I can get my 20 ounces of water, which I think you can calculate the equivalent milliliters. But I use 20 because I'm left-handed and I can see across the line for 20 very easily. Okay, so we have our 20 ounces of diluted L110 developer in the measuring cup. All right, this has been soaking for like almost 2 minutes. So we'll pour that out. Sometimes there's a dye on the film, sometimes there's not, but I like to pre-soak it. All right, so now we'll pour it in. And I like to usually give it about 10 turns of the swizzle stick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That'll get it going. Okay, and I'll set the timer for 1 hour. Alexa, set timer for 1 hour.
1 hour, starting now.
Okay. So now we'll just put this aside so I can start my second roll right away. So we'll just put that there. I'll put my roll of film there so I know that's the Kentmere 200. All right, so we'll do the same thing on this one. This way I have 2 of them started, and we'll go for the hour. So we'll fill this with our cold water from the tap. And you needn't be too concerned about temperature. If your tap water is between 60 degrees Fahrenheit and 68, the development works fine. There's no need to fuss over the temperature. All right, and we'll let that sit. And let me set this up so I can pour the developer in the cup. All right, just like before, oops, let me turn it. Just like before, we'll use 8 milliliters of L110 developer. Let me get that in. Okay, all right, that's 8 milliliters. And let me put 20 ounces of cold water in here. Almost 20 ounces, because I like to rinse out that little cup. All right, this is, okay, just pour a little bit out. All right, just a little under 20 ounces. Now we'll pour in the developer. And just get this, just so I can rinse it out, so I get 20 ounces of water. Just so we don't waste anything. All right, we've got 20 ounces of water and developer. And let's pour out the water from our tank because the film is soaking. And we'll pour the developer in the tank with the XP2. Now, as you know, XP2 can be developed in C41 chemistry. That's kind of a special film, but it works just as well with black and white chemicals. It comes out fine, you'll see. All right, let's stir this. Stir this 10 times. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, and we'll set this aside as our second roll. And the timer is already set. It's within the hour. And here, now let's put this over here so we know which one we're doing. All right, so what we do now is after 15 minutes, I will come back and give it 4 turns of the swizzle stick. I'll see you in 15 minutes. All right, we're at the 15-minute mark, and I'm gonna turn these 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'll do the same thing on the pan, 200 pan. 2, 3, 4. The reason we turn these every 15 minutes is to prevent what's called bromide drag. That's when you see lightened areas on all the sprockets. If you were to just leave this for an hour and not touch it, when you take it out, you'll see kind of white, smears on every single sprocket. So I found that turning it a little bit every 15 minutes works fine. All right, I'll see you in 15 more minutes. Okay, we're at the 30-minute mark. So I'm going to give this 4 turns. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, and let's do the other one. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, see you at the 45-minute mark. All right, we're at the 45-minute mark, and we'll do a quick stir. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, we'll see you at the 1 hour mark, and then we'll wrap up the stand development. All right, we're at the 1 hour mark, and we are finished with the stand developing. So we'll take care of the Kentmere Pan 200 first, and the time it takes to do the fix on this, then we'll be ready to do the XP2, because we started that one about 5 minutes after the other. All right, so let's dump out the developer. You only use it once. You don't reuse the developer. Since it is very, very dilute, it is okay to pour it down the sink. And we'll rinse it with cold water a few times. This is what we call a cold water stop bath. It'll stop the development. All right, let's do that. I usually do about three good rinses. So that's one. That's two. Three. All right, we'll do four. We'll do one extra for good measure. All right, so that's three. And then four. And what we do next is pull using the fixer. I use Ilford Rapid Fixer. Comes in you can either get a 500 milliliter bottle or a 1 liter bottle. I got the 1 liter bottle. And what you do is you mix 4 ounces of fixer to 16 ounces of water. And that's the right proportion, the right dilution to have your fixer, and it's in the bottle and you can reuse that. I usually use it for 2 months and then dump it properly and then create a fresh batch. All right, so we're gonna pour in the fixer. I do just enough to cover the film. Don't have to fill up the tank, just enough because it's only one roll. And then you turn it for 5 minutes. And I'll see you back in 5 minutes. You turn it every 30 seconds for the 5 minutes, and then the fixer will be done. I'll see you back here in 5 minutes. All right, the 5 minutes are up for the fixer. And we're gonna pour it back in a measuring cup because we're going to use it again. All right, so now we're going to give it a good rinse with cold water. We'll rinse it about 5 or 6 times. And when I'm done with the rinse, I'll be right back and we'll see how the film looks. All right, the rinsing is done and let's take a look at the film. All right, let's see if I can do this with one hand. I know and I'm left-handed. I'm holding the phone, so let's see. I'll do the best I can. Let's see if I can find the end of the film. All right, looks like we've got some images. Okay, so through the magic of video, we're going to show you what the scanned images from Kentmere 200 look like. Okay, now we're ready to take care of the XP2 film. So we're going to dump out the developer because it's a one and done kind of a deal. You only use it one time. It's very diluted, so it's safe to dump down the sink. It's all exhausted, so it's very dilute. All right, so we're going to rinse this a few times and then we're going to proceed to use the fix. So we'll be back in a minute. Okay, we're done with rinsing the film, rinsing the developer out of the film. And now we're going to pour in the fixer, Ilford Rapid Fix, as I did before. And we're going to let it go for 5 minutes, turning it about 2 or 3 times every 30 seconds. All right, so we'll see you back in 5 minutes. All right, the 5 minutes is up for our fixer. So we're going to pour it into the measuring cup. This way I can pour it back into the bottle and use it another time. Okay. All right. So we'll rinse this 5 or 6 times, and then I'll come back as soon as the rinsing is done. Okay, the rinsing is done on the XP2. So we're going to take out the film. And I know I can't do it with one hand. So I'm going to stop the video just for a second and pull out the leader so that you can see what the film looks like. I think you can see some some frame lines already, but let's take a look in a second here. All right. So here's the final product of XP2. It looks pretty good. All right, so let's take a look at what the scanned images look like on XP2. And then we'll go back to Anthony for some final thoughts on the process. That's a great job, Tony. They really look terrific. Most of the time you don't have to do any editing on these photos, but if you're using expired film, sometimes you might just have to do a light, very light editing. That's all I've ever done. And usually on my Instagram, when I do posts, I usually say what I've done to the photo, whether it's unedited or if I've reduced highlights or I've added just a little bit of contrast. But it's very, very minimal that you need to do, minimal editing that you need to do with the results from stand development. So I hope you like what you've seen. I hope you give it a try. It's very easy. If you have any questions on what I've done, please ask me questions in the comment. I always check them and I'll answer your questions. And I hope you love it as much as I do. And it's great. It's a great, easy way to develop black and white film. So if you like what you've seen, make sure you like and subscribe. I appreciate that. And I'll see you very soon on the next Anthony's Expired Film. So let me go. So next I want to, what I do is I set a timer on my phone for 15 minutes. So the time I use is 1 hour.